Good evening. My name is Kyle Gatlin. I'm one of the pastors at Covenant, and we welcome you to tonight's service. It's Holy Thursday, Maundy Thursday, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. We're here, and it's a Thursday night. And the Maundy comes from mandate, where Jesus said, as often as you do this, remember me. So basically, he was mandating that we remember him through the act of the giving of the bread and the wine. So that's why we do this. This has been going on for centuries and centuries, and we don't want to buck tradition too much. We will every now and then, but we're sticking with this one because, first of all, Jesus told us to do it. So that's why we're here tonight. So some of you are actually going to celebrate two meals. You'll have a meal with us, and then out following our meal, if you're here for Celebrate Recovery, you will go back to the fellowship hall and enjoy another meal. So you're getting double dip tonight, so congratulations on that. I will tell you, the first meal may not be as filling as the second meal, at least in your belly. Maybe spiritually a little bit better, but we'll see on that. But may God continue to be in this place. For those of you who are watching online, whether it's live or on a Thursday night or you're watching at some other time, I will be offering a time of remembering the Lord's Supper, the Holy Communion, when we take the bread and the juice at the end of our time. So if you can grab a piece of bread, cracker, or some kind of liquid. The great thing is, if you're at home, we have no idea what liquid you're using, so you're on your own on that one. But you can take part in at the end of the service with us. You can get ready for that. Your online host will also be reminding you about that as well. Let's continue worshiping. I will turn it over to Laura Grace.
This is a wonderful night to remember why we are who we are, and it's our time to remember the love that Jesus has for us and the chance to give that love back. Let's stand together and join in singing. Your hymn books are in the pews if you want to grab it. It's hymn number 364. The words will be on the screen. My Jesus, I love thee.
I could have swore when Laura Grace told you the hymn number, I heard some murmuring that, what? Hymnals? What are those? It's been 2 years since I've seen a hymnal in this church, right? So yes, feel free. For those of you that actually read music, yes, you actually can look at the words and read the music. All 5 of you that actually like to do that, all right? So thank you for singing along with us. And so you see tonight a table, okay? And this table is ready for a meal. And I don't know if everybody fits in this category, but I think the majority of you do, that you love eating, right? You love eating. I think the majority of us would be adamant that, yes, I love eating. Why do you think I live in Dothan that has over 1,000 restaurants to eat, however many we have? So we love eating. And we love eating with people that we like. We particularly like eating with our families. It's pretty interesting when I was growing up. When I was growing up, I'm the youngest of three. I don't have much recollection of my brother's 11 years older than I am. I don't have a lot of recollection of my brother being around because he was 18 and I was 7 when he moved out of the house and got married. So me and my sister, mom and dad is what my recollection of when I was younger. But the one thing that it was pretty constant that I have a huge recollection of is eating together, primarily Sundays. Primarily Sundays. My mom worked third shift, 11 to 7, got home. So she was always sleeping most of the time during the week for an evening meal. She usually had a couple nights, Wednesday night or Thursday night, one of those nights that we might have a meal together that she would prepare for us and actually eat with us if everybody was home at the same time and all that stuff. But Sunday was the day because Mom would go ahead and come home from work. After church, she would stay up and we would have a dinner together. Then she would go to bed and get up for that night shift. Dad always cooked those Sunday mornings. He was the one that did all that. The only thing that Mom contributed was Krispy Kreme donuts every Sunday morning, which was fine with us. We didn't have any problem with her stopping and getting Krispy Kreme donuts in Mobile. So that was Dad's deal. And actually, he would cook a Saturday lunch for us too most of the time. Those were usually hamburgers, hot dogs, stuff like that. But the Sunday meal, roast, some kind of roast, and it was always ready. I thought it was interesting. Can I go off a rabbit trail a little bit? I'm gonna go off a rabbit trail. My first church was in Florida, in Bluntstown, Florida, and I still remember we had a 9 o'clock service, right? Didn't we have a 9 o'clock? I think we had 9 o'clock service there, 9 o'clock church, 10 o'clock Sunday school hour. And I still remember a lady in the church. Her name was Ruth Holly. I remember her telling me she can't come to church. She's got family coming in. She's got to cook. I went, my dad cooked every Sunday for as long as like 18 years. I can remember he cooked every Sunday. He never missed church. He was there for Sunday school. He never missed church. But anyway, I never told Miss Ruth that. I don't respect her too much to let her know that you don't have to miss church. You can cook stuff that takes 2 or 3 hours. Anyway, so that's my rabbit trail type thing. And if any of you are thinking that today, you have heard of crock pots, right? You've heard of crock pots? Just making sure you heard of that. So we enjoyed that. That was our family time, no matter what. By the time I got to junior and senior year in high school, there were some Sundays I was working. So it didn't happen a lot. Didn't happen every weekend. By the time I was in high school, just me and my mom and dad. My sister was at Auburn, and when I started working, Dad would still cook. It didn't matter. It didn't matter if I was working that day or not, because I'd be eating leftovers when I got home from work. That was just a big deal for us. Big deal for us. And we as empty nesters now, my wife and I, we still try to get some meals together and enjoy our meals, just her and I, a lot of times. There are some times that doesn't work out, particularly the evening meal. Doesn't work out. We have grandsons and Bible study. That may mess up 3 nights of the week because we got to feed 2 different grandsons at 2 different times and all that stuff. And sometimes we don't even eat, right? But we enjoy those times. We enjoy getting our family together. Those of you that have experienced this before know that the surest way to get 18-plus old children home is to say you're going to feed them, right? And so that's what we did. So my mother-in-law was in town for a week, and so we were able to get our son and his family to come over for a meal, got our daughter to come down, we were able to enjoy a meal together, and then another meal out. It was just a good thing to do. We enjoyed it. There's nothing like sitting down at a meal and relaxing and just spending time with each other. And really, that's what this meal is. This was a meal of sitting down and enjoying time together. For Jesus, it added a separate layer because he knew it was his last time to be with his original 12. He knew that no longer, these 12 would not be together like this again. This was his last time to be with them. So they had this room that he actually asked Peter and John to go prepare this room. He told them specifics, and you can read the story. But they found the man, they had the room. The man had a guest room. And the guest room, we know, is upper room. And what we have figured out from archaeology and all this other stuff, that most likely this room belonged to a person that was probably middle to upper class, because it was a guest room, because it had an owner, a host, and actually servants that came with it. Okay? So there was some preparation had to be done, because Jesus said he desired to enjoy the Passover with his followers, with his 12 disciples. So they were probably most likely getting ready for a Passover meal. There's some wiggle room in there if you read a little bit about it, but most likely it was a Passover meal. And when Jesus asked them to get it ready, and we have the description of the guest room, I want you to understand that this room could have a dual purpose. I don't know if you realize this. Because it was a furnished room. If you read the scripture in one of those Gospels, Matthew, Luke, or John, one of those says it's a furnished room. I can't remember exactly one. What does that mean? Well, sort of like we got set up that Sherry Kugler and Gayla Adams have decorated us for us. It had cushions type thing all around the table, which means this room served as a dual purpose room, because you can eat and sleep in this room. So if you ever tell your spouse, I want to eat in bed, you have biblical reason to do this. So there you go. You have a biblical reason to stay in bed and eat. So literally people could eat, fall asleep, wake up, and keep eating. What a life, right? What a life. If you go visit somebody, you could lay around, eat, and get up, wake up, and eat again, all right? So most likely it was a Passover meal, which meant that it was a meal of remembrance, which is key, right? Because when we think about what Jesus did. This was a meal of remembrance. They were remembering the original Passover, 10th plague in Exodus, when the angel of death was coming to all of Egypt, even where the Israelites were staying. And that was where the Israelites were instructed, kill a lamb, put the blood on the post of wherever you lived, whether it was a tent or a building, put blood out there, angel of death will pass over you, and your firstborn child will survive. So this was the Passover meal. And the Passover meal was all about remembering how God had been with them. Again, key to thinking about Jesus here, right? And what he said at the end of this time. Now, the original Passover. Hey, put the blood on the doorpost, cook your lamb, eat it. Oh, by the way, you can make bread, but don't put any yeast in it, because you don't have time to let it rise, because you're going to eat in haste. You're going to be getting out of Egypt as quick as you can, so this meal is eaten in haste. You don't have time to lay down, sit down, and eat this meal. You got to hurry up, eat your meal, and get ready, pack up, we're getting out of Egypt. That was sort of the message. So originally, the first Passover meal was eaten in haste. It was eaten with unleavened bread, and it was most likely eaten standing up. Somewhere in the rabbi's teaching, they they moved this meal to a reclining meal because the rabbis said, and this is the only feast that they do this. This is the only feast at a table. This is the only feast they recline in. The rabbis were teaching the people, you recline because free people recline. Slaves eat standing up. So no matter what the circumstance the Israelites were going through over the centuries, every time they did a Passover meal, they ate reclining to remember they were free. Even during this time, Romans were in charge. I'm sure many Jews felt like slaves because Romans were in charge, but they still needed to remember that they are free because God is their God, and they are free people. Now, this table that they ate at, in Arabic, the word table also means reconciliation or forgiveness. Reconciliation or forgiveness. So this actually was a reconciliation meal. It was a meal of forgiveness. And we see these meals, actually, there's really 4 incidences we can point to pretty quickly. Abraham and Melchizedek had one of those reconciliation meals, if you look in Genesis. Jacob and Laban, if you remember, Laban was not the best father-in-law in the world. He tricked Jacob once to marry a daughter that Jacob didn't want to marry, and then it took 14 years for Jacob to marry the person he wanted to marry. At one point, Jacob was getting his wives, and they were leaving, and they were basically going to leave in the dark of the night, and Laban caught up with them, and there was a sort of a arguing back and forth. Short story, right? I'm telling you the short story. But anyway, Jacob and Laban ended up making up, but they had a meal together, and they reconciled together. And then Laban gave Jacob his blessing as Jacob was headed back home. Which is the second reconciliation meal that Jacob had, was because when he met Esau. Remember, Jacob cheated. He tricked his dad into giving him the blessing. And so he was scared to death that Esau was going to, kill him. When Esau and Jacob finally met, they had a reconciliation meal. They ate together and reconciled. And Esau forgave Jacob for what Jacob had done. And then probably the most famous reconciliation meal was after the resurrection, when Jesus appeared with his disciples, and he ate a meal with them. And that was his way of saying, we are reconciled. I've forgiven you. I forgive you for abandoning me. Forgive you for all the things that transpired that you were just scared to death of, whatever. So Jesus reconciled with his disciples over a meal. Have you ever tried to eat with somebody that you just hate? Doesn't work real well, does it? You're not going to enjoy your meal. And so that's sort of this whole idea of having a meal together, and if nothing else, it clears the air, and you can sit there and get all out and enjoy that relationship, that reconciled relationship. And that's what this was. So when they come in, wherever they came from, I can't remember exactly where the disciples came from, but Peter and John had it ready. They walk in, they go up to this stairs, this open room, all ready to go for Passover. Now the host, whoever the host is, technically Peter and John might be the host, right? They aren't the owner, but they got it prepared, so were they the host? Possibly. Well, in Jewish tradition, the host is to supply some hospitality. One hospitality would be that they would wash feet. Because wherever they came from, they had to walk through dirt and whatever, so they're going to have dirty feet, no matter if it's a short or a long journey. They may offer some oil to put on their head. They may offer a cup of cold water as well. And they also might just simply light some incense. Our fire alarm doesn't work real well right now. It keeps buzzing off, so I don't know if this is going to set it off or not. But so why did they have incense? Well, if you keep up with Jewish tradition of where people lived and everything, did you know animals were really close by? Pretty much everybody that had that lived anywhere, their animals, they kept close by. They protected them almost like they were family. So can you imagine it might have smelled a little bit bad? Have you noticed the chicken smell lately around here? Have you noticed that? There's been a chicken smell where somebody has spread some stuff over their field. I've been smelling it for a couple days. So, and my smelling is bad. So it's out there. So those are one of the four things that they could do. I'm not sure they did anything. Maybe they did the incense. We for sure know that the feet were not washed. We do know that from that night. So when we get to the room and all the hospitality, whatever is given, they take their place at the tables. And the fact of the matter is, I'm not sure who actually made the assignments, but this is where Jesus was. He was in this spot right here. This is where John was, and this is where Judas was. I'll put that right there so you can see it, okay? So the guest of honor, the main person, would be in this spot right here. Okay, and of course they'll be lying down. And yes, I had knee replacement surgery, so I may do the rest of it right here, right? So they'll be lying down, leaning on their left hand, and then they would be using their right hand to eat with whatever was in front of them, whatever was around them. So this is where Jesus was. Right here, in this spot, is where John was, the beloved disciple. And he made sure and tells you that in his book. Judas was right here. All three of them reclining. These were the seats of honor. These were the seats of honor, to the right and to the left. There's a big, long history, I believe, of the whole right and left thing of a person as a guard or whatever, but it was a place of honor. And then we have our wonderful guy who prepped everything, Peter, was right here. Okay? So, if Peter's here, he is also, look, he's leaning on his left right here. And so the only person he can see and talk to is either this person right here, or he can probably get John's attention over there. So this is the dynamic that's going on this night. And what you need to understand, particularly over here, is when Jesus was lying down, when he is leaning on his left elbow, if John wants to talk to Jesus, you know what John does? John leans back into his chest and talks to him. If Jesus is wanting to talk to Judas, he leans like this. So Jesus, when he talks to Judas, he's literally leaning on his heart as he's talking to him. Which is pretty interesting when you think of what was going on that night. Because Judas had already put things in motion. Judas had already made the decision to betray Jesus. It was only a matter of the final straw. And so Judas is there participating, what? In a reconciliation meal. He's sharing, actually, as Judas is laying there and Jesus is laying here, they are sharing out of the same bowl. So they are eating together. They are eating together. So Jesus is almost saying, by his actions, Judas, I forgive you. Judas, you and I are reconciled. Without Judas having to ask, without Judas having to say anything, the act was there. What we don't know is, did Judas remember this? We don't know. We don't know what went through his mind there at the end. We do know Peter had issues. And we do know that as Peter was reclining there and Jesus was talking about betrayal and everything, Peter got John's attention, and John leaned back on Jesus and was asking about, well, who is it? Who's going to betray? Who's going to betray? One scholar has speculated that the reason Jesus waited so long to wash the feet that night was because he was, as a teacher, he was giving every opportunity to his disciples to take up the reins, to do what they're supposed to do what he's taught them to do, to be the servant that he'd already taught them to be. So that's why it was so long into the night before Jesus started washing all the feet. And because of Peter's spot in the space, he was the last one Jesus got to. And that's when Peter basically said, no, do not wash my feet. Why? Because Peter knew that was his job. That should have been his job. Because he was part host, and because he was in the seat of lowest honor, this was the seat of lowest honor, so if the host did not offer the feet washing, the person who was at the lowest seat was supposed to do that. Do you find it ironic that Peter got this spot, yet he was one of the most vocal of the disciples, and he was the one that preached the first sermon that 3,000 were saved? I wonder if he learned something right then. Not sure. I'm not sure. Well, let's get to the Passover meal itself, because part of what this whole deal was for everything on the table, it was to help the people remember their past, to remember where they had come from. For instance, the hairset, which sort of looks like mud, and again, this was a dipping meal by and large. So the mud, it looks like mud because that would remind the people of how they built how they had to build stuff for the Egyptians using the mud and straw. So this was a reminder of that. They had bitter herbs, which is this. I'm not going to eat that. You're welcome to. It's very bitter, and some more bitter herbs there. The bitter herbs was to remind the people of slavery, of how bitterness that slavery had been. The egg, which was roasted egg, was to remind the people of the suffering of the people during this time. And ironically, another ironic thing about this meal, of course, they used unleavened bread, which would be the matzah or the pita stuff. You know, that's standard. We didn't have much explanation for that because they were in a haste. They didn't have the yeast. But they had salt water. Salt water. In remembering their exodus, to remember their being saved from slavery, they never forgot those who died. The Egyptians who died in the Red Sea. Interesting they would throw that in there, don't you think? That you remember your oppressors. You remember those who harmed you, who beat you down, but you're remembering them because of their death. I thought it was pretty interesting. Anyway, well, the lamb stew that most likely Judas and Jesus shared was standard too. We slaughter a lamb that day, and most of the people would probably make a lamb stew just because it would go further. This was sometimes the only meal that a lower class Jewish person would even have lamb. Predominantly throughout the rest of the year, it would be fish. But this one special meal, they would have the lamb, and they would make it last as long as they could, or go as far as they could. So they would have the lamb stew because that was the sacrifice that had to be made when God told them in that first Passover. And then we have the cups. They have cups. And a cup, well, it would be wine. It would be wine. And traditionally in the Passover, there would be 4 cups. Drunk. 4 cups they would drink that night. And those 4 cups come from Exodus 6, 6, and 7 to where God is saying that He's going to free them, He's going to deliver them, He's going to redeem them, and He's going to take them to His own. And so they would take of these 4 cups during the night. There was always a cup for Elijah, though. If you ever done a Passover or a Seder meal here with us, there would be a cup called Elijah's cup. And Elijah's cup was to talk about, we saving one for Elijah who is to come again. And I'm just spitballing. I just sort of thought of this off the top of my head. I didn't read this anywhere. But I'm wondering, did Jesus have the Passover meal with him, and did they do the 4 cups? And I'm wondering if he said, instead of the 5th cup being not taken, did he take the 5th cup and said, Elijah has come? I don't know. I just sort of spitball on that a little bit. But the cup of wine was a cup of joy, truthfully. Because you think about it, when God tells them, I am going to free you, I am going to deliver you, I am going to redeem you, I'm going to take you to my own, there is joy in that. And then when they drink that, there's joy there. But we also know there's another meaning behind the wine as well. Because how do you get wine? Well, you got to crush something. You got to crush it to get it. So probably intermixed in all those meanings, when Jesus took the cup that night, there's going to be joy because your sins are forgiven. But it's going to take a crushing to get that. When you take the bread, you need to remember it was broken. It was broken for you, so that you would be free. Tonight, I'm offering you really a reconciliation meal. Because that's what Jesus came and did for us. He repurposed this whole meal. And instead of telling his disciples, I want you to keep on remembering the Passover, he repurposed the whole thing. He took 2 elements from the meal that night and said, hey, next time you get together. It's okay to remember the Exodus, but how about this? Remember me. Remember me because I am the one that redeems you. I am the one that delivers you. I am the one that frees you. I am the one that will take you into myself and give you eternity. So tonight, you have the little chalices. If you've not gotten one, they're out there in the lobby. There's a little place that has a piece for the bread, and the other place you can peel off for the juice. And here's the deal tonight. You take this when you're ready. You take this at your pew. You can come down and kneel at the rail. Heck, you can come down up, you can lay down up here. You can sit down up here if you want. Some of you can't get back up, so this will be a little bit difficult, all right? But wherever you want to in these next moments, and whenever you're ready to be reconciled to God, take the bread and take the juice, knowing that you are free. Knowing that you are delivered, knowing that you are redeemed, know that you've been taken into the family of God because of what Jesus Christ has done. And I want to remind you of one other thing. When you look in your mind's eye and you go around this table, and you see the people that Jesus ate with and that he reconciled with long before they got it right. Know that you can take and be reconciled no matter where you are in your life, no matter what is going on in your life, knowing that God, through Jesus Christ, is reconciling himself to you. And you are forgiven. God bless this time whenever and however each person takes the bread and the juice tonight. At home, here in the sanctuary, in a pew, and kneeling, wherever it is. God bless this time. Bless these moments. Pour out your Spirit on us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
One day a plain village woman, driven by love for her Lord, recklessly poured out a valuable essence, disregarding the score. And once it was broken and spilled out, a fragrance filled all the room, like a prisoner released from its shackles, like a spirit set free from the tomb. Brokenness sweet abandon, let me be spilled out and used up for thee.
Once they had finished that night, as was the custom after a Passover meal, they would sing a hymn and then they would leave. And then that night they sang a hymn and then they made their way to the garden. Would you please stand as we sing the last time tonight before we leave? We're going to sing a hymn. The hymn was normally from the psalm. We're not singing probably the psalm that they sang, but it's from the psalm nonetheless. Laura Grace.
Praise to the Lord who doth nourish thy life and restore thee, fitting thee well for the tasks that are ever before thee. And to thy need, God as a mother doth speed, spreading the wings of grace o'er thee. Praise to the Lord, oh let all that is in me adore Him. All that hath life and breath, come now with praises before Him. Let the Amen sound from His people again, gladly forever adore Him.
Just a reminder, tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, there's a worship service in the gym. We'll also have a Good Friday service here at 7 o'clock tomorrow. For those of you who are going to celebrate recovery, Fellowship Hall, you can head there. I hope that you'll have a meal ready for you. Hope that you enjoy that and enjoy your time together tonight. May God bless you and keep you. Oh, I think there's a service Sunday, maybe. Is it called Easter? Yeah, we got 3 of those. Here we go.